This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
It's really an exhilarating thrill and an amazing zechus to visit the Kever of the Chacham Tzvi, Rabbi Tzvi Ashkenazi, who was born in the year Taf Ches, 1648, and he lived till 1718. He lived 70 years, 1648 to 1718. He was born in a small city in Moravia, today Czechoslovakia, to his father Rabbi Yaakov, and in his youth his family moved to Budapest in Altaiban, where the Jewish quarter in Budapest. He learned Torah from his father and his grandfather, Rabbi Ephraim HaKohen, the Baal Shar Ephraim, and then he was sent to Salonika, who he learned from Rabbi Eliyahu Kubo, and through his Rabbi, Rabbi Tzvi Ashkenazi, turned into one of the greatest sages of the generations in many areas of Torah. He wasn't even 18 when the Beis Din Haggadah of Kushta gave him smicha, and they gave him the Sephardic title Chacham, which was very rare to have such a title at a young age of 18 years old. He at 18, look in Shal Shuvas Chacham Tzvi Siman Kuf Mem Aleph, he already was dealing with Shilas in Agunais. And unfortunately, there was a great war, Salonika, and the cannons fired many shells. It hit the Chacham Tzvi's house, and it killed his wife and his only daughter. Now, wherever the Chacham Tzvi traveled, he was offered prestigious Rabbonasim, and which he did not accept. Interestingly, whenever the Chacham Tzvi would receive a letter, so he would like to read the titles that they would offer him in the letter. Many Gedolim wouldn't even want to look at it, but the Chacham Tzvi would specifically read it because he would say, I need to understand how people view me, so this way I need to toil more in Yer Shamayim so that my actions don't cause a Chilul Hashem. The Rav Yaakov Emden writes in his autobiography, Megillah Sefer, on page Chavav, about his father, that when his father was a Rav in Amsterdam. Now, we're going to come to that, because first he went to Berlin, he remarried, he married the daughter of Rabbi Meshulam Zalman Neimark, who was the Rav of Ehu, Altona, Hamburg, Wandsbach, and when his father-in-law died, they asked of Rav Tzvi Ashkenazi to be the Rav of Kehilos Ehu, and then he went to Amsterdam. Rav Yaakov Emden writes about his father's stay in Amsterdam, that any money that came to him for psak or for taking care of gittin or other rabbinic duties, he gave to the kupa of the kehila, and he would not be nene from any of his duties. He would just take his set salary. In the Shal Shuvas Chacham Tzvi Siman Tzadi Gimel, amazingly, he's masupik about someone who's created with the Sefer Hayetzira. Is that person mitztaref to a minion of Kaddish, Kedusha, and he testifies about his grandfather, Rabbi Eliyahu Baal Shem, the Av Beis Din of Chelm, that his grandfather created a Goylam. Well, the Chacham Tzvi's son, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, known as Yaivitz. The reason why Rabbi Yaakov Emden was known as Yaivitz is Yaivitz stands for Yaakov ben Tzvi. 2 years ago, we had the schus to visit Rabbi Yaakov Emden's kever in the Kehilos Ehu in Hamburg. Rabbi Yaakov Emden in Shelas Yaivitz Siman Pei Beis, he mentions what he heard from his father. What happened to that particular Goylam that was created by his grandfather, the Rabbi Eliyahu Baal Shem? Well, after he saw that this Goylam was getting bigger and bigger, he was afraid it would destroy the world. He wanted to remove the shame from his forehead and be mevatel the Goylam, but in the course of doing so, he was injured by the Goylam. The Goylam scratched his face in his attempt to try to remove this shame Hashem. Now, regarding this picture that we're showing over here, the famous picture of the Chacham Tzvi, Rav Yaakov Emden writes in the Shelas Yavetz, Chelik Aleph, Siman Kuf Ayin, that this is such an authentic and accurate picture. The only thing it's missing is a Ruach Chaim, the spirit of life. Now, Rav Yaakov Emden, Rav Tzvi Ashkenazi, the Chacham Tzvi, at great personal risk, exposed the masked Sabbateans, followers of Shabtai Tzvi, such as Nehemiah Chiyun. So he was a great loichem against the Sabbateans, as his son followed his footstep. If we could just end off with one amazing chidush of the Chacham Tzvi in the Tosfos Chidushim Siman Yud Gimel. There seems to be a stira in the words of the Mechaber, because the Mechaber by Hilchos Chanukah paskins that a katan shehigia lechinuch can light the menorah and be moitzi his household, while when it comes to Purim, the Mechaber paskins that a katan shehigia lechinuch cannot be moitzi others in Mikra Megillah. Why is that? Says the Chacham Tzvi, because the mitzvah of listening to the Megillah, that mitzvah devolves is chal on every individual, and therefore a katan shehigia lechinuch, his obligation in the mitzvah is merely rabbinic, and therefore his chiyuv is not strong enough to be moitzi others. Masha'in ken on Chanukah, the mitzvah of lighting the menorah does not rest on the karkafta de gavra. The chiyuv is not on the individual, but rather the chiyuv rests on the bayis. As long as the bayis has a menorah, a lit menorah, one is mekayim the mitzvah. And therefore, however it's lit, even by a katan sheyagia lechinuch, that is a sufficient way to be yotzei the mitzvah. So it is a great privilege to be at the Kever of the Chacham Tzvi. I don't know if I ever thought I would have this merit in my life, and may all of our tefillas be neskabel barachamim uvratzin.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.